Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Danny Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you. And if you've been reading Twitter, this could be the biggest grudge match since London took on Plymouth on Friday. And we
I
all know
thought we
how
should.
grudgy that was.
I thought we should have gone to Manila. You know,
Indeed. Yeah.
with Ali Fraser
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. The London Plymouth grudge match.
Indeed. So
Come on,
let's
guy.
let
There's lots of things that obviously irritate me, as you're aware. But
yeah.
taking one's intelligence or not or knowledge for granted is one of them. And you know,
Oh, wait.
man. That wasn't. That's when there's a real grudge match. It's going to be the boy who cried wolf now.
Yeah. There it is, the problem.
Come on.
European games. Lions won in Venice 95-91. Flyers won at home against the Hammers 68-56. I must confess, I watched the Bristol game. I didn't really see anything of the Lions game, but both good wins.
I saw a little bit of the Lions game, but not that much of it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, my memory of it is basically gone because they kind of fit, other than the fact that they are really confident at the end of games.
It
You
was
know,
interesting because I was talking to somebody today about it, and it's one of those things of last year they lost a lot of close games.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
this year they've just won them all, and that's the difference between being second in the standings and whatever they were last year, sixth or
Yeah.
seventh.
From memory, I think Conor Morgan made made an important
Yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, Sarah. But it's just the manner in which they carry themselves is one of a team which is really comfortable in its own skin,
Hmm.
and that built on the confidence of winning. The biggest thing with Lions at the minute, the biggest notable thing with Lions is Queeley actually,
Hmm.
because he played probably the first 3 months of last year and looked absolute fish out of water. Couldn't make a shot, didn't wasn't comfortable on the court, and then he got hurt, and he's come back and he's a different level to where he was.
Hmm.
His body looks strong. Obviously, he's put the work in. Um, but you see Bozic, I think, put him in the game at the beginning of the fourth quarter in this game, which was a bit of a vote of confidence, because he's the kind of the Ward Hibbert who doesn't really play much in Europe, but will
Hmm.
play in the BBL and in British Basketball League, and um, and with Solowadi being out, obviously he's therefore got a bit of space to develop. He got some minutes out there for him, so that's kind of an encouraging thing from the GB thing, which is there's a kid there who's still young, still very young. He's been hyped since he was 13. He's been to Real Madrid, etc. But he's still very young as a pro. But he seems to be taking significant strides with a high level coach and a high level team around him.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think Conor Morgan brought the game with a three with about a minute and a half to go, and that was kind of it. Bristol, I saw your stat and I thought, I thought, does he really know?
What, the 16 wins?
No. The UK, the British teams against
Oh,
Dutch.
yeah, Dutch teams. And I'd missed out. Niall corrected me because I missed out London, whoever they played a couple of years ago.
No. The Harlem Christmas Days tournament of 2011, 2012.
Yeah. I mean, in proper European competitions,
That was
they,
proper European. We played 4 games in 4 days, and then
yeah,
it was 4 games. Lansted, Zwolle Hammers, they beat
mm,
us.
yeah.
Significant contributions from a guy called Cameron Wells, who
Mm,
played against London a couple of years ago in Euro Cup, I think, and
mm,
two guys that we then signed called Damon Huffman and Kareem Maddox.
mm.
So that was technically a win for a Dutch team against a British team, albeit it was Christmas.
Yeah, and it wasn't a real tournament.
Well, okay, fair enough. Well, it was a good warm up for the
Yeah,
resultant blowout of Rowe and Plymouth in the cup final.
yeah.
Anyway, Bristol, yeah, Bristol kind of out enforced their game on Zwolle. Zwolle
Mm,
were was moving the basketball. They weren't overly athletic. The sighting of Noah Dickerson, who didn't make the
yeah,
cut at Cheshire.
yeah.
Who he lasted about 8 games at Cheshire, and they moved on from him. And he's
No, he played
obviously
more than that. He played more than that. He got
did he?
injured for a bit. Yeah, he got injured for a bit, but he played more than that.
I thought he got cut at the end of the release period.
No,
Uh,
no, he played 20 odd games.
Oh, right, okay, my fault then. Maybe I thought he was going to get cut and he didn't. But anyway, he was there. But and the teams that these EMBL games are playing, they're primarily playing against teams with only 2 or 3 imports.
Mm,
And there is a bit of a difference in the athletic level at times. And while Hammers were making shots, they were close. But when they stopped making shots, and Bristol
yeah.
were able to power them, and another good win. It kind of cementing our place in the hierarchy,
Mm.
really. I think the
Six.
extra Americans does help.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it definitely helps. 16 wins for British Basketball League teams this season against European opposition, which is the most ever in a season. I admit that stat is slightly skewed by competitions
Yeah,
these days, but it's still more than ever before. The previous best was 14, which was in 2001, where London Towers were playing in EuroLeague and the NEBL, not the
yeah,
ENBL, the NEBL, same thing really. And Birmingham played in something called the NEBL Challenge Cup,
yeah.
if I remember rightly, and they made it all the way to the final four. They went to overtime in the semi final, if I think if I'm right, and ended up losing.
Maybe lots of games. I think
Yeah,
that was
lots of games, lots
lots
of
of
games. Yeah,
yeah,
lots. The reality is now you've got Bristol and London, Bristol and Newcastle and Caledonia are all playing in group stages. And in the old days, when we used to have 5 teams in competitions, you would play 2 games and then you'd be knocked out. It'd be home and
yeah,
away. Or if you got through, you'd play another 2 games and get knocked out. So,
yeah.
so it's slightly different, but it's still a notable stat nonetheless. So let's go to the British Basketball League games. Start on Thursday night with a bit of entertainment in Manchester. Manchester Giants 87, Surrey Scorchers 85. Surrey obviously still without Hunt. Traded scores early on. The first real impact in the game was when Walsh came in at the end of the first quarter and Am won. Super generous, super generous
Yeah.
and sportsmanlike, by the way. Then he
Oh
scored on
goodness.
the
Oh
buzzer.
my goodness. I can only think thought there was a
Yeah,
wraparound, but there clearly
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
Uh, that's one you want to get back if you're a ref, I think. That
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. And then alley oop to Lawton. I mean, he had 14 points in 4 minutes, Walsh,
Yeah,
to
I think
take it
they
from
had
18
7 points.
all to 38-24.
I think that kind of call helped them to score 7 points in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the biggest thing early on in this game was that obviously Surrey were coming off a landmark win in Newcastle where they'd made 15 out of 26 threes. And British basketball league is up and down.
Mm,
You have a bit of reversion to the mean, a regression to the mean,
mm,
and their shooting wasn't there. They didn't make shots that they'd been making in Newcastle, particularly Robinson and Lawrence early. Had some open ones, didn't knock them down. Cooper coming off the bench didn't get because he'd been hurt a little bit, so he didn't get many looks either. And yeah, the game was just toddling along at its normal little kind of one of 1,000 games that we've seen in the past
mm,
3 months. It seems like pace. And then Evan Walsh came in and did the old my old club
mm.
routine, and which we've seen from a few players this year now.
Yeah,
Who should,
I think Josh Bett helped him by predicting Surrey Scorchers would win because he said
that
not going
may
to
have
happen, mate, and
yeah
he delivered.
that may have also assisted.
Yeah.
But the old club thing, we've had Nick Lewis, we've had Jordan Johnson, we've had um, him, and we've had a couple more now. People
Mm.
who've really showed up and had an impact on the game. And Walsh came in, like
I'd almost throw Pat Whelan out, but he kind of
Whelan,
does
yeah,
it. He does it against everybody, to be
yeah, he
fair,
did
not
against
just
everybody, but he
one.
made the shots at the end of the game against Leicester. He
Yeah,
was the one.
yeah, yeah.
It's that type of thing of it's the player who turns around and says, "We ain't going to lose this game."
Mm, mm,
And that's happened. That's happened a few times. And when you look at it, it's generally the players who played against their old team.
mm,
Raul Bell actually played well against Newcastle in the first win down there as well. So, so Evan Walsh came in and suddenly, yeah, and he kind of blew the game wide open. And at this point, when Surrey's threes aren't falling, they struggle to score a little bit,
mm,
and it needed a bit of um, a bolt from the blue in Paddy Wang to start knocking down
mm,
shots
mm.
for Manchester to kind of get dragged back in.
Yeah, Robinson and Wang managed to pull it back to 46-39 just before halftime. Manchester out to 11 early third quarter. And then in the second half, Surrey 9 in a row, 55 53 got it right back, and then that set up a grandstand finish.
I thought the game was there for Surrey to win once they got it
Mm,
back. I
mm,
thought Surrey would look like the more cohesive team. Um, Manchester were playing a lot of adrenaline, Walsh, a lot of energy. But they got a lot of bodies as well. They got a lot of people playing a few minutes
mm,
here, a few minutes there. Stanley's playing a few minutes there. McNeil only played 2 minutes. Is it going to be Harris? Is it going to be Walsh who's going to be playing? Because Jamel's going to be playing. William Lee's going to be playing. You've got the two centres sharing minutes. Bosia's playing off the bench. So they got a lot of kind of moving pieces. And I was waiting for Surrey to kind of just make the final move in the game and take it away. What Surrey didn't have, obviously, without having Hunt, was that they kind of got out athleted in this game a little bit. Manchester have a lot of athletes, and that I thought meant that Manchester could make enough hustle plays to keep their noses in front.
mm,
And Surrey, basically, other than Wang, couldn't make any shots.
mm. So 4 minutes ago, Wang 3, but then Stampley hit one back. Lawrence missed a 3. Walsh down the lane. Robinson then bounced it off his own leg. Walsh stole it away and ran back a layup 83-79. And that was the point 2:51 to go, because I, like you, thought Surrey were going to reel
Yeah,
them in and win the game. But that was the point when that one goes in that you think, oh, maybe Manchester got this here.
well, yeah, and then but basically Manchester's offense kind of stalled the last 3 minutes.
Mm.
And they
Let's
just made enough plays. They
let's
just enough
let's
plays.
go through it then. 2.5 to go. Robinson was blocked, but they kept the ball, and Wang managed to get to the basket 83-81. Stampley missed a 3. Lee was fouled on the offensive rebound, but he missed both free throws.
Yeah,
Heck of a play by Anderson to keep possession for the Giants, by the way, on that
and
one.
that's kind of what I mean with the Manchester's athleticism and effort. Kind of got them over the hump in this game
Mm,
because you got to if you don't rebound with foul shots, and that's one of the
mm.
major determiners in not winning close basketball games on the road.
1:48 to go. Lewis to the rim, but he got blocked by Jameson. It looked to me like Lee threw that off Jameson's chest out of bounds, but
It didn't just
sorry.
look to me like that. It was bloody obvious. I'm sorry. If I was Simonian or I was William Lee, I'd been jumping up and down. I mean, the ball went off at the right angle.
Mm,
It doesn't look good, that call.
mm,
That was, I'm amazed they took it so meekly. And
mm,
this is the one where, there's 3 refs, and in theory, it's kind of it's in all of their fields of vision because it's under the basket. The shot's just gone up. Maybe the top guy is looking outside for rebounding stuff. But somebody has to see, how did where the ball ended up is almost behind the basket. I don't think Lee could have thrown it there if he tried.
mm. Plus,
Um,
plus, why would he be throwing it if not off
why would he be
somebody?
throwing the ball out of bounds? It just
Mm,
made absolutely no sense. So sorry,
mm.
I watched that back this afternoon just to check.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I remember that now.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
anyway.
so they'd had 3 goes at it and didn't get any points.
No,
Wang made a 3. It wasn't my favorite shot selection, but it's a cojones shot, that one, isn't
yeah,
it?
well, he's made 3 or 4 and he's feeling
Yeah,
good
yeah,
about
yeah,
himself. So,
yeah,
and he's had the kind of the green light to take over at the end of games.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, if he's got the matchup, they're quite a mature team, sorry. The
Mm,
coach is mature, the players on the court, you've got Lawrence and Robinson are on the court with them, who are past the kind of the ego thing of, give me the ball, I got to have the ball.
mm,
So they're seeing Wang, going and giving, they're happy. They're obviously they like him because they're willing to give up the ball to him and let him make plays. And
mm.
he has the physical capabilities to make that shot
Yeah,
every time. He's
yeah.
6'6". He can step back. He's kind of almost like an NBA body without the muscle, the athleticism. It's just his handling, his skill set at times means that he turns the ball over.
Mm.
You got to tighten up on it.
So that's 83-84. 1:15 to go. Walsh with the drive. Nice pass to find Lee opening the key. He puts Manchester back ahead now.
I
83.
thought they made a hell of a play
Mm,
because Walsh had nowhere to go
mm,
and kind of just threw it over his shoulder. And if Lee wasn't cutting, that was a turnover going the other way. That was probably the play that won the game.
mm,
As Lee caught the ball on the roll, kind of wait behind him, and was able to shoot an 8-foot shot because Manchester had nothing in that offense. It was just,
mm.
in fact, Walsh actually looking to the refs for a foul call afterwards on the drive. So Lee made an unbelievable play, scored the ball 86-85.
85-84. The Wang drive foul, 1 of 2 free throws ties the game 85 apiece. 41 seconds to go. Anderson down a bit of a blind alley, and Robinson got a little hand in to disrupt the shot, so it missed everything.
This is what I was talking about Manchester's crunch time offense. You know, other than the rebounding that they got off foul shots and the rebounds, and then the play that Lee made when Walsh threw it over his shoulder, which wasn't a deciding play. They ended with Jamel dribbling the ball, having to shoot a turnaround and missing badly. And basically, at this point, it's Surrey's game to lose, really.
Wang got the switch. Stampley guarding him. Stampley, I thought, did a great job. Stood up in front of him and forced an air ball 3.
I thought that was the time that if I want Justin to come and get the ball, I'm sorry, that one, because they given, and it's easy to say that with hindsight. I get that. So it's a hindsight thing, but it had what happened in that play with two effects. One, they switched an athletic defender onto him, so he wasn't going at the guards and he wasn't able to get downhill. And because that kind of first and second attempt to get downhill was discouraged, that meant he's still dribbling the ball with 8 or 9 seconds, 7 or 8 seconds left on the shot clock, which means there's not really much else left other than Paddy and make a play, because everybody else kind of. Lawrence has already cut through. Lawrence and Robinson are on the same side, and Lawrence has already cut through to the far corner to get out of his way, so he's got the open side to go. But he hasn't. But he's had the ball every time down for the past 4 minutes. Possibly a little bit tired, maybe not that comfortable with his kind of ability to get to the rim against Stampley, who's quite a mobile, athletic defender. So he shoots a fadeaway, and it comes up about 6 feet short.
To be fair to Stampley, he's right up on him and doesn't do that thing of trying to reach and foul him.
It's great D. Yeah, it's great D. But the better D, obviously not screwing it up at the end is admirable. I agree. But the better thing is not allowing him to get past you.
Yeah.
And then not to screw it up by doing the dumb thing. So absolute credit to Stampley and credit to the coach for having him in at that point, because he hasn't played that many minutes. But what happens is, because they're all a bit out of sync, Lawrence is in one corner, Robinson's in the other corner. The guy who's at the top, who would be the guy who needs to get back on defense when that shot goes up, which would normally be Lawrence or Robinson, is actually Mohammed. And what Mohammed does from the top is just immediately crash the glass to try and get a rebound. Well, of course, the shot's so short, there is no rebound to get. And because he's crashed, Lee gets the ball, and who's the one guy who's at the top who you're not going to catch? Evan Walsh.
Yeah.
So Walsh is suddenly, because of the way that the offense ran, because it didn't have either the guards at the top, and because Mohammed's not used to being there, Mohammed's a rebounder. Walsh is there for an open layup with 20 seconds to go.
To be fair to him, I thought he did a good job of getting his body in between him and Wang, because it ended up being Wang that was chasing him back. And he made sure that Wang couldn't get anywhere.
Walsh is really good at that. Let's be honest. That's Walsh's skill set. That's not his only skill set. He can shoot the ball, but primarily he finishes well in transition. He attacks the rim really well. He protects the ball. It's because he's quick, and he's also 6'5", probably. Probably he's a legitimate 6'4", 6'5", so he has his body to protect it. So he did a good job, and he made the play. But the reason he was able to make the play was because no way in the world should you, with 20 seconds to go, when you're up 1 at the time. Well, they one down.
No, it's tied.
It's tied. 20 seconds to go. You're tied. You can't be giving up a free run out, a one on 0 fast break. If everything's right. And it was just a way that, because Wang had the ball, because Lawrence wanted to create space because Mohammed didn't immediately go backwards instead of forwards, and bang, you give Manchester a chance to get an absolutely critical bucket in the full court, because they're not scoring in the half court.
So there's 14.7 seconds left after Walsh lays that in and gives Manchester a 2-point lead. Timeout advanced the ball. Manchester still had a foul to give. Anderson did a really good job of denying Wang the ball. There was no way Wang was getting it. So they got it into Lawrence, and then Lewis uses the foul with 5.1 seconds to go.
It's a good foul, and probably Surrey could have gone a bit quicker, but it was a good foul. It was a good foul. Reset the clock for them.
So
and the reason it's a good foul isn't because you've just committed a foul and therefore everything's fine. It's because it's easier to score from 14 seconds out than it is with 5 seconds out. It's easier to play defense for 5 seconds than it is for 14 seconds. So you get the chance now to reset your defense for the last 5 seconds of the game. So when people take these fouls, it's because what they're trying to do is to give the offense less options in relation to where they're going to go. And there are 6 defenders on the court. There is the 5 defenders and there is the clock. So the less that's on the clock is the extra defender. Sorry, everybody already knows that, but just in case people don't.
Yeah. So another timeout. Lawrence gets it into Mohammed. Mohammed hands it back to him. He drives, kicks to Mohammed, who's open for 3. Looked like a good play. Looked like it came off the playboard, and then the ball slipped out of his hands.
Might have or it might not, because I watched it back, and there's a couple of things with it. One, Mohammed flares out for the 3, yeah, but the reason Lawrence passes him the ball, because it's only 2-point game at this point, is because on the far side, Wang has curled into the paint from the corner. No doubt looking at maybe some tip-in rebound or something like that. He obviously got one against Surrey, didn't he? Against Plymouth in the last set. Yeah. And the problem is that his timing of that curl brings his defender right into Lawrence's way. Because other than that, Lawrence has a lane to the rim or to his little 10-foot floater, which is money, you know, which you'd live with. But because Wang's defender is dragged right in, and might have been Stampley again around us, I'm not sure, the pathway isn't there. So Lawrence makes a pretty good play in getting the ball out to Mohammed, but I can't believe that was the number one option. Number one has to be.
No, I don't think it was number one, but it was an option, and he caught the ball in a good spot open.
Yeah, and he just got too slippy with him. He slipped out of his hand. But if Wang had held out, I think Lawrence gets either a layup or a floater or a foul. And it's so spacing. So people go back and watch that if anyone wants to. Just the spacing, just the moment that option presents itself to Lawrence, he's got Wang's defender almost in front of him, clogging the lane. And so Manchester kind of, it'd be hard to say they got away with it because they played with a lot of energy and made some really smart plays at times. But offensively, at times they're a bit ugly to watch, and they're really living off their athleticism and their hustle and their energy and their shot making. I'm primarily talking about Harris and Lewis. And then Walsh coming and running the floor. So I'm not sure it's a kind of a staple for lots of wins down the line. I think they need to tidy some stuff up. They need to decide who's going to be in the game at the end. I still prefer the look of them when Bosie is in the game. I think they have a better flow, a better spacing about them when Bosie is in the game. Maybe they lose a little bit defensively. Surrey, they just lost it to the gods of the 3-point shooting. Ultimately they shot 11 of 32, 11 of 34, something like that. And if they're averaging 13 threes, they make 15 in Newcastle and they win, they make 11 in Manchester and they lose. And the issue with Surrey is obviously that without Hunt, that's one less spacing option they've got. And the reality is, it's how long can Justin and Andrew stay healthy, because they're a different team and those guys are able to run that team. And there was once Justin, I think, cramped up when he went to the basket in this game, and you think, he's not pulled a calf, has he? Or he's not done his ankle, has he? Because that's kind of the concern about that team, because they've got Gooden in the background, but he's very, very different. He's kind of a score first guy, and they're going to have to try and fit him in as well. But I like the rhythm that they've got with the spacing with Lawrence and Robinson. It was no surprise that those two were on the court at the end.
Walsh 8 for 10, 22 points, career high for him, 4 assists. Lee 7 for 9, 15 points, 8 rebounds. Anderson 15, 57% field goal shooting, 41 points from the bench. Wang 30 points, career high for him in the British Basketball League as well. 11 for 19, 7 rebounds. Robinson 16 points, only 2 in double figures. They shot 38%. Mad that a 2-point game. One team shoots 57 and one shoots 38. But they had 20 points off turnovers and 15 second chance points.
Well, I said last week, Surrey can't score enough twos to beat you. If you can hold them off the 3-point, then you've got a really good chance. And the 57% twos is, a lot of that is missing, 6'10" guy in the middle.
Yeah.
They're missing. You're undersized, and Manchester are probably over athletic. you would say, as a team in comparison with the kind of the median line of athleticism in the British Basketball League. Manchester are above it. And Surrey, without Hunt, you have Wang, but apart from that, they're probably below it, below the median line of athleticism. I think they just lost out. That's a new concept, isn't it? I've just made that up on the spot.
Yeah.
Median line of athleticism.
I like that.
More about medians.
Yeah. We need more medians in the game. Right, Dave, that's the pleasantries out of the way. Let's get down to business. Newcastle Eagles 71, Bristol Flyers 89. No Neighbour. I noticed Newcastle put out a thing today that Neighbour and Spencer are out till January, I think it was. I must say, whoever writes the tweets for Newcastle needs to reword that, because I read that they played their last game and it said in 2023 at the end, but the 2023 gets lost in all of that. So
yes, but it's kind of well, I mean, it's a hell of a clickbait, isn't it? Yeah, we've got 2 players injured for the season. Oh, we haven't. I mean, Spencer will be getting close to having played more, having been here more months than played minutes. But if he's got to get hurt, he's got to get healthy. He's got to get healthy. If it's in their interest to keep him in the meantime, because we did show glimpses. So maybe that's what they want to do, and they don't want to mess around with the chemistry. And obviously, Neighbour's been playing limited minutes, so one assumes that he's had kind of an ongoing issue, which they're finally deciding to sort out. It leaves a little bit short because they've got down to basically eight senior pros, which is enough for the British Basketball League, but they're probably a little bit on the small side. They're losing a 6'6" guy and 6'10" guy. But yeah, that came out. And then obviously they played against Bristol, who are probably the high point for athleticism on the BBL, on the British Basketball League median scale. They're probably up there on number 1 or number 2 behind London.
First real run of the game in this one was around the first quarter break. Eagles had 12 points in a row to lead 29-20. Jackson helped Bristol get most of that back, and Eagles remained in front till half time.
Yeah, I thought the game was lost in the first half. I thought for Newcastle, and won in the first half for Bristol, because Bristol came out the half time with shooting 2 of 13 from the 3-point line with 46 points. Right now, I'm not even sure that's physically possible. But to have 46 points, and they're not a high scoring team, without making any threes, which is basically the position they're in. Came because it was basically a layup line into Newcastle's basket, and precisely when the legs weren't there. Bristol played a lot of games. They're down on players as well. They played on Tuesday, then they're getting on the bus and they go to Newcastle on the Friday night. The legs aren't there. They're not making threes. That is the opportunity to put them away. And I thought when Newcastle made that run at the beginning of the second quarter, I thought that was their chance to put them away. I thought Bristol were not out on their feet, but I thought they were extremely vulnerable and ready to be put away. And unfortunately, Newcastle couldn't make 3 consecutive good plays, defensively in particular. And if they did get a stop because Bristol missed a shot because they couldn't shoot, for whatever, then basically Bristol absolutely destroyed them on the offensive boards. And that meant that they were able to get second shots and they were able to get to the rim. And whilst Newcastle were able to score at the other end, 46 all at half time, at home against a Bristol team that can't make a shot, that's your chance. That should have been 46-32. In my view, not because Bristol aren't good, but because Bristol were not feeling it. They were not feeling the flow, but they got so many unmissable shots that the game was tied up. And I think that gives you, if you're Bristol, confidence, because the one thing you do have is physicality and the ability to wear teams down. And I'm talking about Jacob, Ollison, Thomas Edwards in particular. And I know Green got all the points. Green's slightly different. He's physical, he's big, he's got a touch. But the guys that really won this game for them, Jacob, Ollison, Thomas Edwards, in relation to their rebounding and their defense, because they have to guard the little guys.
So Green helped the Flyers into the lead in the third quarter, 57-52. 32 seconds to go in the third quarter. Johnson called for his fourth foul wasn't really much of a foul. I mean, there is something of an arm movement, but I'd have rather a
You're going
no
to call
call.
that on every time the ball's put in
Yeah,
bounds down.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I mean, to be honest, that I think ultimately we'll get to the point down the end, but that was, I think that the level of contact involved in that type of call was partly responsible for the frustrations in contact and other types of calls later on. It was just, it's just that basically, if you're a referee, when the ball's being put into bounds, right, because it happens 30 or 40 times a game, you've got the defender stepping in with his hand in, you've got the offensive player with his shoulder in, the defender. Occasionally you get as far as two hands to the chest to get open, and no one ever calls it.
No.
Just a matter of getting the ball in bounds.
I guess the thing I would wonder is because he went that way rather than back to, normally that sort of push thing is to push him that way and you go back to the ball rather than push him that way.
Well, that's because Samuels is a pest, and Samuels
is annoying defensively.
Samuels is overplaying him to getting the balls.
Yeah.
So Johnson's going the other way. If Johnson had gone the other way to go back to the ball, nothing would have been called.
No.
And the problem now the reality was why we're making such a big thing about call. That was it was a sliding doors job, that one, because that is, unfortunately for Newcastle, and it's only one of the reasons. It's only very slight mitigation, but that precipitated the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, which were basically abominable.
Yeah. So Delpesh got the first score of the fourth quarter to tie it at 63. Bristol then got the next 11 points. And if you want to stretch it, you could stretch it out to 25 of the next 29 points and a 21-point lead.
Yeah, and that can't happen on you. That can't. I'm talking very from a Newcastle perspective here. I'm not in any way denigrating Bristol, because Bristol were great in relation to the way that they enforced their will on the game and what they did in the way that they play. This was two very different built teams, two very different built rosters who play in their own way, and Bristol just basically won the mental battle and won the physical battle. But you can't let that happen on your own floor. You can't be a 25-4 run in the fourth quarter in a tie game on your own floor. That is not acceptable in any form of professional basketball, because you've got all your fans there expecting better. And this was, for all the blowout game, it was a tie game with 9 minutes to go. So what happened in reality was that Newcastle, together initially without Johnson, but then with Johnson as well, lost their composure offensively. They hadn't been able to stop them much all night anyway, so defensively weren't great. But the ball stopped moving, if it had been moving at all. It was very much kind of a one screen head down in the middle, and Bristol had kind of figured it out by now, because the scouting reports out there that he just collapsed on the lane, and Jordan Johnson or Ricky McGill are going to either run into you, or they're going to shoot a tough shot off the dribble, whatever, and they're going to hope to bail themselves out with their talent. And the difficulty was that not many of the other guys really touched the ball. Delpesh made a couple of layups. I don't think he touched the ball again. Defoe had 15 points on 8 shots last week. He had 3 shots in this game, and only one of them came off a pass. The other 2 were offensive rebounds. So the big guys aren't touching the basketball. So everything is going through the guards. They are playing the guards as if they're the guys who are going to score. And at that point, the guards have to be smarter, and they have to be able to space the court out, and they have to get to the middle of the floor, and they have to find people, or they have to get their big guys and they have to throw it down low who can then kick it out. In fact, what happened was Newcastle's game nous was non-existent. And there's 3 of them. Obviously, there's 3 guards: there's Johnson, McGill, and Austin. Then they all like to score the ball, but they all can't pass the ball. McGill and Johnson are numbers 2 and 3 in assists in the league, so it's not like they're ball hogs. But at this point in the game, they became embroiled in a kind of Emmanuel battle against Bristol's physicality. And that's primarily driving into Green and hoping for a call, driving into Thomas Edwards or hoping for a call. And the reality is they weren't getting those calls, whether they should have been or not. That depends on the refs, but you've got to adjust to the refs. So they didn't.
So let's get to the debate that you and I had yesterday on Twitter. So 2 plays in a row.
I blame Elon. It's a very, very poor medium.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
for dealing with.
Let's see if this is a better medium for dealing with it. The first play happens. It's Austin in transition. He's running through. We've seen him do it a million times in the times he's been here in the British Basketball League. My view is he kind of jumped at Green, screams hey, looks for a foul, and nothing is called. In real time, I didn't even think anything of it. I've only watched it back because you brought it to my attention.
Yeah.
Thing. There is probably a coming together of knees. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything up top, and I
No.
would suggest that the referee on the baseline wasn't well placed to see that versus Ian McDonald out on the wing, who I thought was in an excellent position, given it was a fast break.
I think he had somebody between him and the
Well, I thought given it was a fast break and Larry Austin is pretty quick, I thought he was where he was supposed to be on the floor, and he chose not to make a call on that. Then the one thing that did frustrate me a little bit was Green and Taj Green and Austin ended up on the floor as a result of this play, and Bristol came back the other way 5-on-3, and they never got back. And nobody fouled them. They just let Green have a shot. And I was like, that doesn't seem like sensible play to me. Then Eagles comes down and Green, to me, jacked an early three. Taj Green jacked an early three.
The offensive execution was vulnerable.
Yeah. Austin goes for the offensive rebound, and he's sort of like the one coming from the Bland side, if you like. And there's a bit of a collision with Smith. I wasn't 100% sure it was a foul, but Ian McDonald, who's on the wing in the same spot as he was on the previous play, blows his whistle, puts his fist up, calls a foul on Smith.
Yeah.
On Smith. Austin jumped up, never even turned around and looked to see what the call was, ran to the referee on the baseline, Ignacy, and was like, you got to call a foul or somebody's going to get hurt, which is a fairly illogical argument given a foul's just been called. There's no reason a referee has to call a foul, not one specific referee.
He was talking about the previous call.
Well, he might well have been talking about the previous call, but it didn't make any sense at that.
We'll go back a little bit further. I'll go back a little bit further with it because the fun. Firstly, Austin was obviously way out. He lost his head. He's way out of control. He got quite rightly thrown out, and it was all a bit of a sideshow of the game, which was finished anyway. To be honest.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But what I attempt to do and what I have kind of fun doing is putting on the Cluzo hat, trying to go back over the period of the game and try and work out, what's really pushed his buttons, because outside of the fact that they're getting embarrassed on the home floor, and he hasn't probably, since he's come back from injury, he hasn't probably fitted in the way he wanted to. So there may be some residual frustration there, but not enough to send you off like that. So you try and go back and look for clues.
So just before you do that, let me explain for anybody who hasn't seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. He goes basically mad at the referee. I'm amazed the referee doesn't tee him up straight away, but he doesn't. And he carries on, and then eventually a different referee gives him a technical, and he carries on, and there's a lovely shot from the baseline where you see Chris Dodge put his whistle to his mouth, and I was like, here comes the second technical. And to be fair, Chris didn't call it. He gave him a little bit longer, and he carried on, and then he got his second technical, and he was kicked off, and he carried on. And actually, there was a point in that before the second technical where I was with Rob Hunt on Twitter. I'd have just disqualified him. I'd have been like, had enough of you, you're out. Forget the second technical, you were out because you've gone too far here. But I get that's what the technicals are for, and it's probably
it's difficult. Well, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to say what's right or wrong. I suppose it depends on the level of abuse, I suppose. If it's something particularly personal or threatening or whatever, then automatic, obviously. But it is what it is. And if he keeps going on, you can give more technicals to the bench as well. So no, he just it was a fundamental, ultimately failure of professionalism to lose it that way. But I'm always interested in the whys. Always, there's always reasons. And of course, the first thing is that he's got history with Bristol.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I held this back from. I wanted to see the look on your face when you're.
I forgot about that.
Right, because last year, exactly in a very similar situation, he drove to the basket. He got fouled. He ended up in a kind of a shouting match, I think, with Ollison at the time, and then they came back, and he was all of that stuff, and he got a technical before. Technical and unsportsmanlike or whatever. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, he lost. He blew his stack. He was actually a little bit unlucky last year.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
If you
yeah, I
remember right,
agree.
talked
Yeah, I
about
agree.
it.
It was just the fact. I think what happened was he got an unsportsmanlike. I think he was unsportsmanlike fouled, and then
Yeah,
he responded
yeah.
and got a technical, and then he carried on and got a second technical. I
But
think
he
that
didn't.
was
He
it.
didn't get but he got the both technicals at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, and
If you remember,
it was one of them who go, hang on a minute, he's got hammered, and he's the one ejected from the game. It
he got the
was
unsports. I think he got the unsports like first, and then the technicals were
yeah,
complete. But I think they
yeah,
got maybe squared up to each other. Got unsport. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
anyway, it was a bit unfortunate, but that arose from Bristol's physicality.
Mm,
Okay, so that's the first thing. So that's in the back. That's in the back of everybody's mind. Then there's 3 calls in the second half, which I think have had a cumulative impact on his brain. The first one is where he drives to the basket, and Chris Dodds calls a foul before the shot, which is fine. Continues to drive, and Raoul Graham-Bell protects the rim, 2 seconds after the whistle, which could have been called unsportsmanlike as a second foul. When you whistle.
Yeah.
Now I don't know what the rule is about that. If the first one's a non-shooting foul, I don't know if the second one counts as unsportsmanlike.
No, it still can. Yeah,
it is. Well, it could well have been because he was well within. He didn't shy away from the contact. He was well within the restricted zone, and it wasn't an unsportsmanlike foul on its own, insofar as it wasn't a dirty play. But he hit him. He made sure that he made sure. So that's
a foul after a foul, which
foul after a foul. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So that's kind of increased the physicality of the game. Okay. Then the second one was when there was a skirmish under the basket, and in your colleagues, I think Todd was saying, "Man, that's not a foul. That's not a foul," and they called that. I'm sorry for doing the accent. And if you remember, I don't. Green went up, and it was one of those ones where you always catch people out because their hands are like that, and then they go back.
Yeah.
And so Green went up, and the ball came out of his hands, and it was one of those ones which is difficult to see, whatever. And Thomas Edwards, who played with fantastic presence and force all night, and Ward Hibbert ended up on the ground, and Ward Hibbert just has his hands on the ball, and Thomas Edwards kind of leans into him. Ward Hibbert kind of goes to the ground, his knees kind of. It's an accidental undercut, if I can put it that way, and you can't really see very well on the screen, right? And then no call, and the ball dribbles around, and then Austin is at the end of this play, and Jackson gets the ball, puts his shoulder there. Austin kind of stands there, maybe a little bit of a nudge with his body, and the ref's got an immediate foul call. Okay, that ref was the same ref. That was Nick Nassy who called him, who didn't call any of the 2 serious ones. And if you watch that back, Josh Ward Hibbert gives him a serious stare. Because what Austin is saying, this is where the players are going to get hurt comes from, because unfortunately, what happened with Raf Thomas Edwards is no discredit to him at all. The way that he fell the way that incident happened, he kind of took Josh Ward Hibbert to the ground from the kind of with it almost kind of falling onto his ankle or his leg or something like that, which is always what players hate, and because that's how serious injuries happen. So then Austin's frustrations are greater because the ref is standing there looking at him, has just called him for what he thinks is ticky-tack. It might have been a foul, might not, but hasn't called the other 2. And as I say, Ward Hibbert stares him down. Then the third one, where he's going flat out and knee on knee, whatever, nothing is called. So, and on top of that, they're getting embarrassed on their home court.
Yeah.
On top of that, history with Bristol. You put all of that together, and that's when the switch flicks.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that switch shouldn't flick. It can't.
Yeah.
You're a pro, but that's why it all happens. And so what looks like kind of where you've just got a foul call there for something which probably wasn't a foul on Smith. It might have been, maybe there's been an arm there which isn't on the camera, which Ian McDowell's able to see. But in reality, it's happened because of the build-up of frustration with him. That just can't happen. You cannot win basketball games like that. We had it. I always tell the story. I tell the story about Gores. Neil Wilkinson. Gores 4 times and like 3 times in.
Neil Wilkinson would have thrown Larry Austin out in about 15 seconds.
But what I say about, and this is the thing, the other thing though, and this is the thing for and obviously they know that it's Nick Nassy who's called the 4th foul on Jordan Johnson, which is basically no contact there at all, really, or very little contact. But the point, this is why, ultimately, Nick Nassy has to turn around and say, the minute Larry Austin comes up to me like that, I don't care if I am right or wrong about the previous calls. You tee him up straight away.
Yeah.
Automatic. And instead, kind of, he was a little bit rabbit in headlights in relation to, oh, I might have made a mistake. I don't want to team up too early. It's going to calm down, calm down. No, he's gone. His head's gone. He's coming at you like that. That's aggressive movement, aggressive language. You've got to team up straight away and then see what happens. Hopefully one of his players will pull him out of the way or something like that. But by you know, and by require, I mean, I have a pet hate of referees who call technicals for their mates. You know, but this time on this one, they're absolutely right. Normally, you know, there was one last week where I think Brian Simonian got one across the court
across the court,
somebody when he stood, he's talking to one ref, and the other ref calls one from 40 feet across the court, and I'm thinking that's rubbish. You know, let the ref who's having the conversation call the technical. But on that one, Ian McDonald had to come in and call it, and he shouldn't have had to because the guy's going at Nick Nassy, and so Nick Nassy has to, in his development as a ref, he has to say, look, I might have screwed up, but there's a line that you can't cross, and you cross that line, and you team up straight away. And then maybe a whole different element of sliding doors happens.
Yeah.
You know,
because the other thing he could have said was, there's been a foul called.
Yeah.
Because Austin had no idea.
Yeah. But he was litigating.
He'd gone,
I'm telling you that now. He'd gone and he was litigating everything else that had happened. And so so that's kind of a thing. But you know, for all we've talked about that, the fourth foul call on George Johnson was far more important than all of that stuff.
Yeah, it was.
In relation to where the game went.
You're good at that, Mr. Forrester, because you've got him a suspended sentence there, I think.
Well, this is the other thing, because you know, it doesn't, unfortunately, it's very difficult to explain what I do in my daily life, which is basically explaining without excusing.
Yes.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Is to explain. It's again, you explain something without saying, it's all right.
Yeah.
You can't get that across on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that was probably on me. But Bristol, wow, you know, that's a hell of a win.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a win, not because of the fact that they snuck out a 3-point win in Newcastle, because of the way that they imposed their will on the game. The way that they, you know, all Newcastle had to do in that game was defensively rebound the ball. If they defensively rebound the ball with all those missed 3-pointers that Bristol are putting up, if they defensively rebound the ball, they're going to get enough out there in transition to run Bristol off the court, and they couldn't. They just couldn't. They weren't attuned to it. They are at the moment short of a little bit of devil in relation to willingness to do the things that you need to do to win, and their help defense, their defensive rebounding. If Newcastle's guards and wings don't rebound the ball defensively, they aren't going to win many games because their bigs are boxing out. Green had 15 rebounds in this game as a four-man. But it wasn't the rebounds for Brad Green that killed him. It was the rebounds for Thomas Edwards. It was the rebounds for Jacob. It was the rebounds for the guys who had running starts. And they can talk about how, you know, my defense is all right. We held them. No, they missed a ton of shots because they're tired. They're dog tired. They've come off the bus from 6 hours. They're 2 of 13 in the first half, and you still give up 46 points to a team. That is unsustainable. And there are no teams in this league you can now turn up and just beat. So they're going to have a bit. They're off to Romania this week, and their bubble's been popped from the run that they had, where they got into a flow of playing games and they felt good about themselves. They came across a London team that was a bit under strength. Then McGill went off at Surrey, and you know Johnson had his big game in Caledonia for his old team, and they all feeling good about themselves. Well, now they've got a gut check now, because you can't. It's not you lose a home game. You've lost 2 home games that were winnable, both in this fourth quarter. Both when in reality, you've shown a lack of, you know, you're up against Surrey with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, 4 points, and had 2 foul shots. And they're tied with Bristol, dog-tired Bristol, 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. You can't lose those games that way, whereby it's not even close at the end, not at home. So they got things. But Bristol, you know, absolutely hats off to them for and Thomas Edwards, you know, for just a constant, relentless barrage of committed basketball, doing everything, doing all the grimy things that Newcastle aren't doing. And I say him, but in Jacob's defense on McGill, and just all, you know, and someone blocked Whitfield's 3 near the end, and you know when you run around in the last 2 minutes of a game and you're blocking shots and you're blocking 3-pointers and stuff like that. And I haven't even talked about Green, but Green just did what he's meant to do. You know, he finished and he did everything he's meant to do. But that is just an incredibly good win for them.
McGill, 16 points off 19 shots, 5 assists. Green, Taj Green, I keep saying that. 14 points and 15 rebounds. Johnson, 4 of 11, 13 points, 5 assists. They shot 35% Newcastle. 19 offensive rebounds, Newcastle, but only 9 second chance points. Green, 11 of 16, 27 points, 14 rebounds. I ought to say Brad Green there.
Yeah.
Jackson, 20. Thomas Edwards, 14 points and 11 rebounds. Bristol, 13 offensive rebounds, but 21 second chance points.
Brad Green, yeah, sorry, go on.
It was 58-28 points in the paint.
Yeah, and you think, oh, well, that's because Brad Green's dominated the Newcastle Pigs. It's not. It's because Newcastle have been unable to deal with Bristol's dribble penetration, which has meant that the bigs had to be drawn, and there is nobody helping the helper. There is nobody collapsing the lane like you need to do against a team that's 2 and 13. So every time, all of a sudden, or Jackson goes into the lane and Del Pesh or Defoe steps up, that means Green is there for a dump off or is in space, and that's where the whole lane has to close, and it just doesn't. On one occasion, Taj Green, who was in his corner, actually followed Raoul Graham Bell all the way at the top of the key, vacating the exact space where Brad Green was making a layup. And they're just not on a string at all defensively. And 58-28 in the paint is just unacceptable. No, the 28 isn't great, but that doesn't matter. It's a 58 in your own court, on your own court, against a team that's known for doing that, whereby the major focus should be that every guard and every wing has to get back in there, rebound, make the lane crowded. They just didn't.
Let's go to the grudge match. London Lions 91, Plymouth City Patriots 84. No Taylor Johnson for Plymouth, no Grantham Solowadi and Connor Morgan for London. This was a weird game. I thought this was really weird game. I was watching the beginning. The only thing I noticed really was the disparity in free throws. That London had 18 free throws before Plymouth had any, which meant Levi and Wiley were on 3 fouls, which is kind of why you notice it more. But they were only up 8 points, 40-32.
Yeah, and Plymouth had Faulkner back, and that was interesting. Yeah. And he gave them, I think, a very useful and
coming off the bench.
Coming off the bench, I thought it actually worked. I don't know if it'll continue to work like that, but I thought it did work for them because they really haven't had much off the bench in terms of scoring without him. And that's when, in this league, that's when the games can be separate. Teams can separate themselves, second units, because basically everybody's got a pretty workable starting 5 by now. So it's how do the second units come in and how do you balance everything out? And Plymouth actually looked like a really competent basketball team. I'm not kind of saying that to be snarky, because there are times this year that they haven't. But they are still pretty youthful, pretty young into their kind of new team season, with Green at the 4 and Green and Wiley sharing the 4 and playing a bit of 4-5, and then Levi at the 5. Obviously, part of the time they've not had Faulkner when that's been going on, quite a number of those games. So he kind of makes them complete. And, at least he does get the ball where it's meant to go. And if he can knock down some shots and kind of get into that rhythm, then he's going to keep these teams competitive, because these guys, Plymouth, do have guys who can score. London, the grudge match, I was part of we had real grudge matches. You've seen seen Leopard's Towers, and
young throwing elbows and winless.
You've seen Finch and Nurse going at each other. I mean, come on, God. Anyway,
so the whole of the first half was like 5 to 8 points. It was just a bit of a meh, and then Lions went on a 12-0 run to lead by 17. And at the end of that run, 3:18 to go in the third quarter, PJ got 2 technicals, super quick technicals, so quick they didn't even cut to him after the first one. And it'd been the first time you see him, he's walking off the court.
I know, I couldn't figure out whether he had an earlier one, but I couldn't see it. So
no, it was 2 bang bang.
Two bang bang. It was guessing Ed probably got fed up with him. I don't know. One assumes that it was a kind of a combination of things then, because the call that he was arguing about at the far end didn't really look like a foul. It was kind of a blocked shot. And then London got a call at this end. So, when you're losing it like that and you look at the stats sheet and you see the amount of foul shots the opposition can get, it does kind of play on your mind whether they should have had those foul shots or not. The amount of times I've been stood on the sideline saying it's 24-3 to the ref as you're running past on the foul shot, which any good ref is going to absolutely ignore. It means absolutely nothing. But and I know it means nothing, but it's a way of expressing your frustration as to what's going on. Look at the old look at the foul count cry, which is just flawed. Most flawed thing in the world.
It's even more flawed than the free throw one.
So but it does also play on your mind. Also, it was really interesting that a vignette when he walked off. Did you see how Faulkner packed on the back? Yeah, and that was interesting because there are times, if you're doing that, when that is appreciated by your team, and you're on the sideline fighting their battles for them. And Faulkner could easily just turned his back and gone back to the foul line, right? But he's tapped his coach on the back and said, "Yeah, good job, right? So you're sticking up for us. You got our back." That has an impact. It has an impact in the locker room. It has an impact around everywhere else. The fact that those guys know that PJ just isn't just lying down. He's fighting their corner. It's a massive thing because the players have to believe in their coach. And when you're 2-15, that can be hard. Because everybody's looking for reasons to blame. So, and from that, would you believe it? Faulkner comes out, bang, bang, bang. There's three. Yeah. So he's energized by the fact that his coach is showing some fight for him, and he responds in that way, and he makes it vaguely interesting.
Green hit some threes as well, and it was down. They got it down to 5, and actually they sporadically hit threes to keep you thinking, could they?
But it became the kind of a drew match, didn't it?
Yeah. It was one of those where they never really looked like they were going to do it, but every time they looked like they weren't going to do it, they would hit a 3, if that makes any sense.
That's right. Yeah. When Green can shoot, it's quite clear Green can shoot and Atwood can score. And as I say, and Levi can rebound, and Levi impressed me in this game because he gives up nothing. I mean, he actually defended some of the London bigs better than most players have, and he's given up about 4 inches. But he does everything he can to maximize his kind of effectiveness on the court. And I thought they looked a pretty competent basketball team. And London had to play, some of their guys more minutes than they would have wanted to, I think. I think the Matt Morgan minutes-ometer was about 28, which is generally the giveaway. And they played some of the younger guys as well, London. They certainly didn't have everybody out there. And without Conor Morgan is probably a plus 12 on the score sheet. If Conor Morgan's playing, you're probably better off as a team because of the level of efficiency he has. But nevertheless, this was pretty encouraging, I thought, for Plymouth. This was.
Matt Morgan, 27 points, 11 free throws. Decker, 18. Olaseni, 17. 5 of 7 shooting. They were 6 of 22 from 3, London. Faulkner, 4 of 8 from 3, 18 points. Atwood, 17 and 9. Wiley, 16 points, 8 of 12 shooting. They were 11 of 35 from 3 in the end, Plymouth. Let's come to Sunday. Sheffield Sharks, 85. Cheshire Phoenix, 104. Sheffield couldn't get a stop early on and couldn't really score to boot. Shargwar helped Cheshire out to a 14-4 lead after 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Sheffield's really they're probably the team most in flux at the moment, simply because of the amount of bodies that they've got. They've got 11 players. Rock didn't suit up in this game, but that, whereas everybody else is pretty much set in their rotations, in who they have. Sheffield have still got some guys. Just brought, obviously Nixon came in not so long ago, and this game they started Stewart instead of Routinho, and I think it's a long time since Routinho hasn't started for them because he's their stabilizer generally. He's somebody who doesn't take anything away from the game, and doesn't make mistakes. So Atiba likes him. He plays lots of minutes. On top of that, you have to remember the background to all this, which is the meltdown in Bristol last week. where not so much where they got stuffed maybe a little bit, but also
they shouldn't have been in a position to get
shouldn't have been in a position to get stuffed. And of course, in overtime, Atiba sat down Ramsey and Pipkins for the vast majority of it, and brought in different guys to play. So you wonder what's going to be the kind of what's the fallout from that, because that's an emotional game for everybody, and you've got lots of people, and he's thinking, they're thinking, why aren't I playing, and blah blah. And the fallout from the beginning was just not great. I mean, they played very un-Sheffield like. They really didn't defend the basketball very well. They gave up penetration and kicks, which again, they do collapse, but they're normally far better at collapsing smartly than giving up kicks for open threes in the corner. Cheshire got a little bit hot. Coke got a couple of fouls, so he and made a couple of early turnovers, so he didn't play. And suddenly it's 38-10 when Chris, they're getting turnovers on inbounds passes, and basically they've just kind of the bottom's just dropped out of them.
Cheshire scored 17 points in a row to get to 38-10. It was in a 4-minute spell.
That was a Cheshire bench.
Yeah, it was the last 3 minutes of the first quarter.
Yeah,
first minute of the
so
second.
that was when Rice sat down, and that's when they've got Stevens came in, made a ton of shots, and Holden's in the game, and Kristen as well, and they just looked a lot more. When it's 38-10, it's generally, look, the away team who's winning 38-10 is playing very well. But this show wouldn't be this show without the negatives, which is no way in the world, in any world, are you meant to be 38-10 down to be in the second quarter against a broadly comparable team. So I'm not talking London Lions, a broadly comparable team in the British Basketball League on your own floor. Right, that just cannot happen. And to be fair, it was adequate. And they made lots of plays. Rideau appears to be swagged up even more with his player of the month, and looks like he's thoroughly enjoying life. He looks like
he's suddenly knocking down shots the last two games.
He looks like he just looks like he's kind of figured it out. He just figured out everything that's going on around him. You get that point with a point guard in this league, a new point guard, and everybody else is kind of doing their thing in Cheshire. And I stick by what I said last week about Chargewell, who's basically becoming, I think, possibly their most irreplaceable individual, because they've got people to cover everyone else. But Chargewell is giving them everything. He's 6'9", he shoots, he rebounds, he dives, makes smart plays, he can defend the perimeter. He's been an unbelievable pickup. And then they have this phalanx of wings they throw at you: Holden, Jack, Rye, Kristen, Stevens. They can all shoot, they can all defend, they're all long. It means you've got to be really locked into how you defend them. And Sheffield would know when Sheffield were locked out. They were stuck. They were the opposite of locked in. And it took Adekoya, actually, who shot more shots in this game than he probably has in the last 5 combined, to show a little bit of cojones. He made a couple of post moves, got them going, scored the ball a little bit, a couple of steals on the defensive end, to try and jolt them into any degree of competence. But
they got it down to 17. They had enough momentum for Rowe to go, they've got a bit of momentum here, and then it just dissipated.
Well, it did, and the second layer again of players in Cheshire were playing really, really aggressively. But what really told me the story was the minutes at halftime in this game. Sheffield had played 10 players, but 5 of them had played 5 minutes or less, 4 minutes or less. So Rodney Glasgow played 3 minutes.
Cook had played 4 minutes.
Cook had played 4 minutes. And a couple of the other guys as well. And it's like, okay, well, they are basically dead minutes. If you've got, normally if you're in an 8-man rotation, you've got 2 or 3 guys who aren't playing well, okay, they don't play. That's only maybe 10, 12 minutes. That's gone, and you get by. When you got 5 of those guys and they're all coming in at different times, and you're not comfortable playing any of them, that makes 20 minutes out of 100. that you might have got nothing out of your players on, and they've not got into a rhythm yet, and they'll say, well, it's not my fault, I'm not in a rhythm, I'm not getting a chance to play. So it becomes a double-edged sword. So I just think the whole 10 players plus 8 on rock thing is going to be difficult. And obviously Etiba thought that a little bit, starting Stewart to see if he could get something different into his starting lineup, because he has the ability to start Glasgow, he had the ability to start Nixon, he had the ability to start somebody else as well. So many of them. No, there isn't. It's just
Adekoya.
Adekoya played the 4 in this game as well as the 5 for the first time this season, because Delpesh came in, he only played 3 minutes, missed a couple of shots because he's not on rhythm. He hasn't played much, you know. So it could have been Nixon, yeah, it could have been Glasgow, but and he started Stewart. That doesn't really work, and they're off. And then after that, it was fair comeback time.
Yeah,
I think.
well, this is what I was about to ask you, because obviously my game had started by that point, so
Yeah.
I didn't see that. But late third into the fourth, Nixon making 3, Sheffield reeling them in, got it down to 7 with 6 to play, and I've written down, is this a fake comeback, Dave?
Yes, kind of. Cheshire kind of brought it on themselves. They went deep into their bench. Hudson struggled in this game when he played because Sheffield were really pushing up on him and pressurising him. And there was a couple of 24-second violations where he couldn't get the basketball around. And Cheshire must have been up maybe 22, 23 with a minute to go in the third quarter or a minute and a half to go. And they put a lineup on which basically just, for whatever reason, turned the ball over, sputtered. Sheffield made a couple of shots, then there was a 3-point foul on the buzzer, and suddenly I think it was a 10-0 run around the right at the end of the third quarter, which was just the wrong time, because if you go into the fourth quarter up 23, you're not losing.
Yeah.
You know, you go into the fourth quarter up 13, the other team's got momentum in their gym. Well, 6-0 run at the beginning, and then it's Alex Ferguson time, isn't it? Ricky Bum time. So I think his squad's got him where they've got to, so you've got to play all the guys. I think I'd have kept them running a little bit longer. A little bit longer to put the game away until you're up 25 with 8 minutes to go, and then you can play who you want. So they kind of let them in a little bit, but Sheffield, obviously, you have to play better in the second half because you're at home, you're being embarrassed. Nixon came out and made some shots. We've talked previously on here about how Sheffield play better when they play faster. They have guys who can score the ball, and because they were down, they have to play faster. They have to speed up the game. So that helped the way that they attacked Cheshire. And yeah, they got just close enough. Retina made a couple of threes, got a couple of stops at the far end, but they made a couple of probably defensive errors. And I think the biggest play of the game was about 6 minutes to go, 7-point game, maybe 5 minutes to go. And there's basically a drive into the paint, and there's a float I've thrown up, which is about 4 feet short, doesn't touch anything. And Aaron Rye comes up like Aladdin with the genie and the lamp amongst 4 Sheffield guys who are literally surrounding him in a square. He manages to go, get the ball, make an and one play, kill the momentum, 10-point game done. Incredible play by Aaron Wright, because you have no right to get the basketball. If you watch it, you'll see the one I mean. And that kind of took the wind out a little bit. I think maybe Rideau got a steal next time. It was a 12-point game, and then it was kind of done. They got so much depth and confidence, Cheshire, that you can't spot them 28 points. So when I say it's a fake comeback, I mean you got to make 3 comebacks. You got to make 3 comebacks to get back from 28 points. You got to do it 3 times. The first one, then a little run from them. The second one, then a little run for them, and then you've got to have a third one in your locker. And Sheffield didn't have a third one.
Nixon 20.6 of 8 shooting. Pipkin's also 6 of 8 shooting. He had 16. Adekoya 15 points. They were 11 of 27 from 3. Rideau 24.7 rebounds, 7 assists, 8 for 12 shooting. Rise 17.6 rebounds. Chargois 16 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists.
Doing everything, bit of everything.
Pretty decent stat line. London Lions 100. Leicester Riders 62. No Grantham Shalawade or Jordan Taylor. Leicester have obviously signed Teddy Allen, but he's not registered yet, so he wasn't there. London scored the first 6 points of the game, and Rob called a timeout. And it was at that point you're thinking, oh dear, this is not going to go well.
Yeah, some sympathy for Leicester because it's kind of a pay shooter to the OK Corral, isn't it? Really, they haven't got what they initially started with. They haven't got the group that took London relatively close on 2 occasions. That certainly is, very competitive.
One occasion. The
One
second one they
occasion.
weren't there. Yeah.
Second one, not quite. Sorry, on the first.
Well, no, the second one they weren't there.
All right, my bad. But even then they were right. But it's difficult to kind of actually delineate the actual kind of separating factors for London. I think if I was to put them in order as to who do they need to have to be really good, to be basically unbeatable in the British Basketball League, I think it would be 1, Conor Morgan, 2, both of Olaseni and Sharma. So if both of those guys are playing and Conor Morgan is playing, and the third one would probably be Luke Nelson, because he's comfortable coming off the bench, and he's the guy who keeps the second unit ticking over. And if you've got all of those guys playing, it's going to be a long night. Grantham and Morgan are similar, but Morgan's better. Morgan's just better. Grantham's really good, but Morgan is he's a third line making a case for MVP, put it that way. So Leicester ran into that, but also Leicester kind of the group that they have now, they're a bit physically outsized by London, out athleted by London. Asbury was a hell of an athlete. Whatever was going in his head, he was a hell of an athlete. Bridges was 6'11", whatever you say, whether he blocked shots or not, he was 6'11". And Pinton had quickness to get around people. Now what they have is they have some hard-bitten pros, a couple of young guys, but they don't have any separating athleticism in that group. Walker is big, but not as quick, and Idobo is quicker, but not as big. And Thomas is solid, but he's skinny compared to Conor Morgan. If you look at him, you put them side by side, there's a difference in about 7 years of professional weight training there, which is a big difference. And at the guard spot, Kimball and Connor you'd be happy with them against nearly every other backcourt in the British Basketball League, but with the starting Tariq Phillip, Matt Morgan, Luke Nelson off the bench, it becomes a bit of a battle for them. And this was a wearing down, this game. Well, I didn't watch the fourth quarter, I didn't bother. But Leicester just got worn down by them. And obviously they've got one guy coming in who's got a heck of a resume, and good and varied, put it that way, in relation, but on the basketball court, an unbelievable resume. And this game might make it easier for them to integrate him, actually, because everybody will realize that he's needed.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to realize that they probably need another one as well. They probably need another kind of big, maybe a 3-4 or a 4, to help Thomas out. But certainly, they need some degree of physicality about them, because they were out. I thought they were out physicaled in this game. They didn't make any threes. That doesn't help. Obviously, you make threes, you stay closer. But it's the physicality of the London team that they were dealing with, and the size of the London team. They didn't really have any answer for that, I could see.
They got it to about 10, hung about till halftime, and then Conor Morgan hit threes. So this 17-3 run, 61-37, basically over. All you missed in the fourth quarter was some great chat from me and Ro, really.
Stop. Whoa, hold the show.
Yeah.
I'll come back in 20 minutes after I've listened to it all. 1 second. No, it's 10 o'clock on a Sunday night.
We'd got into Plymouth of about 12 years ago before the quarter TV timeout. So
I mean, the other thing from Leicester's perspective is that London kind of made all the threes that they didn't make on Friday.
Yeah.
And obviously Conor Morgan was playing, which was kind of something to do with that.
Yeah.
So bit chastening for Leicester, really, but it's kind of where they're at this point in the season. and they've ran into London what 3 times in about a month.
Yeah, not
You
even
know,
that, I don't
which
think.
again, which
Yeah,
isn't great scheduling either.
yeah.
So they've just got to take it on the chin, and when their schedule eases up a bit, I'm pretty certain that they'll start winning some games.
Mm. No, I don't think they play London again for another 3 weeks now, so it's all right.
Really,
Uh,
3 weeks.
I think they're in the same trophy, don't they? Don't Leicester
Oh
play?
yeah,
Don't
Newcastle
Leicester
as well,
play
Manchester.
Bristol and don't Leicester play Bristol and London 15 hours apart or something? I
Yeah,
seem to.
something like that. Yeah, in a 4-game competition, which takes a month.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, yeah, right, okay.
Connor Morgan, 21 points, 7 of 9 shooting, 5 of 7 from three. Philip,
18 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was 19, but yeah.
19. Okay.
Philip was 7 of 9 as well, shooting for 17 points and 5 assists. Matt Morgan, 14 points. They were 15 of 25 from three.
Oh, that's just. I mean, you can't be. You're not going to be close, are you?
Yeah. Thomas, 13, Walker, 10. Nobody else in double figures. Leicester were 4 of 23
But a
from.
lot of that 15 to 25 comes from their size and their physicality. You know, Leicester don't. Leicester don't have anybody who can change Decker's shot or Conor Morgan's shot. They don't have anybody with the quickness to stay with Matt Morgan. On the perimeter. If he's going head down, no one's got anybody with the quickness to stay with Matt Morgan. If he can pull, he can get whatever shot he wants whenever he wants in this league. Maybe Conor could have done it 5 years ago. But even then, I still think he's probably the quickest thing we've just about ever seen in total control. So, that extra size, and the shooting that they have with that size just makes it a really, really difficult matchup. And when they miss, you've got to find a way of boxing out Josh Sharma with Samadou. 7 foot with 6'7", maybe 6'8". And Josh Sharma's 7 foot with long arms. So he was getting second chance and third chances. So yeah, just a pea shooter to a gunfight, I'm afraid. So Alan will be interesting though. Let's see where we get to with him. Who do they play next week?
Caledonia.
Oh, I'll be in Leicester.
In Leicester, yeah, it's a
That'll
Sky
be
game.
good.
Sky
That'll
game.
be fun. Should be a good game.
Biggest win for Lions ever over Leicester. So let's go to the final game. Caledonia 86, Manchester 80. No Ali Hodgic. I missed the first half, so I don't know why Ali
Yeah.
Hodgic wasn't playing.
No Onwas either.
Oh no! Oh, of course, Almas was suspended. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, yeah.
It only took 3 weeks.
Mm.
I didn't see the first half, but looking at the play-by-play, Buttrick, Moore, DeBose, Paliza made some threes in the second quarter, which gave Caledonia a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, it was a Manchester really didn't make many shots early, and they looked like they were coming off a win, and they were not happy to be there, but they looked like they were there to be taken. But Caledonia a little bit short without, obviously with Jovicic gone, a little bit short of scoring, a little bit short of kind of the certainty that Ali Hodzic and Onwas bring them. They're the toughest guys basically on that team. And certainly the ability, Ali Hodzic is a pivot for them. Everything kind of funnels through him. So they had to start playing with Moore. And offensively, they were a bit shaky to start with. Whelan didn't score, I don't think, in the first half.
Whelan didn't score till the end of the third quarter.
End of the third quarter. They got a nice little cameo from Kyle Johnson, gave them some scoring, which they needed. And because of Manchester's length and because they are what they are, they're a pest. They've got Jamal Anderson and Stampley and Robert and William Lee. They stayed around and they made just enough shots. Boussier came in, made a couple of shots, and it got to the point whereby I was a little bit concerned about the old 9.5 point spread, and decided to cash out for even money at half time because I just didn't. I just liked the way that Manchester were able to hang in the game, and also Jimenez struggled when he came in as kind of the backup point guard for Caledonia. Hasn't played that much, so DeBose had to come in early in the second quarter, and they made some shots. But they just managed to get it up to about 6 points at half time, and then came out flat as a pancake in the second half.
I would imagine we've not had betting with Dave for a
Uh,
for a few weeks. I would imagine cashing out at halftime would have been better than early in the third quarter when Manchester went on a 15-3 run to
yeah, I
lead
was proud of myself for that decision.
47-53.
Punching the air with punching the air, getting really back. There was two. I'll just be just quickly on this one because I know some of the refs do watch, and there was two horrible travel calls in the first half, and one on each team. One on Paliza, where he looks like he kind of caught the ball in transition. He kind of caught it and went into kind of one of those elongated jump stops that they do, which could have looked like a travel, but wasn't. And then Evan Walsh, bless him. Chris, if you listen to this, I have no idea what made you think that was a travel. But Evan Walsh did his two-step Euro step thing and made a layup. Got hit on the head, got waved off for a travel, and then pulled his kind of choir boy look. And I watched it back about 4 times, and it just wasn't. So never mind. Never mind. But outside of that, the Manchester came out and Caledonia came out really flat. And Manchester came out and Robertson scored a little bit, and they were able to get to the rim, and they came out confident.
But Malcolm 3 and Whelan's first points of the game at the end of the third quarter had Caledonia 2 up going into the fourth quarter. Let's get to the end of it. It was 76-76 with 3:18 to go. Whelan, a big shot for 3 in the corner on the end of the shot clock buzzer.
Oh, I punched the table on this one down because this was know your personnel, right? Everton, they ran a high screen row at the top. The bus was kind of pinned with about 3 seconds to go on the shot. Because of the way they defended the screen and roll, the bottom guy is kind of helped in under the basket to jam the roller, which has meant that Evan Walsh has gotten 2 guys on the perimeter on that side. One's Patrick Whelan, the other one is Trent Buttrick, who's at the top. All right. Whelan's in the corner. He took away Buttrick and left who had the hard who can shoot the ball, no question. But percentage is like 32%. And he's got the harder shot at the top of the key at the break, but at the foul line. He took away Buttrick and let DeBose throw the ball to Whelan. You can't make that just a bad decision. Just statistically a bad decision. You have to play the percentages at the end of games. Whelan is the one guy who's not shooting a standstill, feet set, corner 3, just with 1 second on the shot clock. Buttrick makes it. You go, well, okay, fair enough, coach, but I wasn't letting him shoot it. That's fine. So that was like, oh no. And Manchester's late game execution again. I think I counted in their last 6 offenses, maybe a total of 7 passes. The ball didn't move.
Well, on the next play, Walsh kind of forced things, ended up turning it over. DeBose got called for an offensive foul. I thought Lawton did a good job there, actually. Lewis missed a 3.
Yeah.
But the ball went out of bounds for Manchester, timeout ball. Lewis drived and missed. Buttrick at the top of the key, 1:10 to go. Hits a 3, 82-76. I thought that was probably it, but then Harris came down the other end and hit a 3 right back to make it.
Buttrick's 3 was a good 3 because it was off a kick out, it was off penetration, ball touched the paint, came out, and he knocked it down. Credit to him. Harris had just come back in the game for Walsh, and Harris is a scorer. It's hard not to have him on the court, to be honest, but they struggle at the times they don't put him on the court. He came down and knocked down a shot, which Gareth wouldn't be very happy that they gave up. Again, it's all individual offense from Manchester.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Which is, probably the unsustainable.
I wouldn't say Harris's was a good shot, but you're down 6.
If you're a shooter with a minute to go, that's a good shot. It was early. It was the ones before that, which were the problem shots.
Buttrick at the end of a shot clock missed a 3, and then 23.8 seconds to go. Lee at the rim, he missed. He got his own offensive rebound. He was fouled on the second attempt. There's a timeout called to come out of the timeout. He makes one of the 2 free throws, 82-80. And then Whelan managed on the inbound. Whelan got double teamed. He managed to pass out of it to Paliza, who was able to run a bit of clock before getting fouled. That was the 4th foul, though, so it's a sideline ball. And this time they got it into Whelan. He's fouled immediately, but obviously you're sending Patrick Whelan to the free throw line with 16 seconds to go. Everything we've seen from Patrick Whelan says he's going to make both of those, and he does.
To be honest, it frustrated me again because they didn't even try to stop him catching the basketball. It was literally one down screen. and Nick Lewis, I think, went under it.
Mm.
So he didn't even chase Whelan over it to stay close to maybe dissuade the pass. They didn't have anybody on the guy guarding the inbound had taken that pass away. For me, if anybody apart from Whelan touches the ball, and to be honest, it's almost you're almost better even if they get a cheap roll at the basket for a cheap layup, the guy might miss.
Mm. Mm.
You might be able to get half a challenge. You might be able to con them into trying a shot if it goes to a big guy who doesn't know what to do. But you've got to take the ball out of his hands, and they didn't do it. Little things make a difference. So Lee's missed one foul shot, Whelan makes two. That's a 4-point game instead of a 2-point game if it being the other way around.
Yeah.
But the other way around, maybe Lee makes both foul shots and then say Buttrick misses one, right? Because he touches the ball. It's a 2-point game. Manchester's got the ball, anybody's game. But now it's a 4-point game. It's basically done.
Yeah, Anderson lost the dribble and then ended up turning it over, and it was.
I thought they got overcomplicated with that. They called that playing the timeout, and it's a play that Finch used to run for Nate Rankin all the time. And if you watch it, but basically the aim is that Anderson is, I think they called it hammer. The aim is that Anderson is driving, but he's not driving to score, because on the backside, the shooter, William Lee, is setting a back screen for the shooter to run to the corner. So Anderson can get all the way at the baseline and throw the ball on the baseline for a corner three. So that was the play. It was just very badly executed, because when you look at it, you'll see that on the screen, William Lee doesn't actually make contact. So there's literally no space for the guy who gets to the corner. And secondly, because of the switches that Caledonia do, Anderson is actually running at somebody who's already backed away. So I think it's Paliza who's backing away. So he's not going past him to attack, to draw people to throw it to the corner, which means he loses the ball. He'd probably been better off pulling up and shooting the three himself, because of the way that they defended the play. So yeah, I thought it was a bit over. I think you can get a little bit overcomplicated with stuff like that, particularly if you haven't absolutely nailed it. I've not seen them run that play before this season. Sometimes you might just be better putting the ball in the hands of your best guy and run the screen for him and seeing what you can make. But yeah, they lost the game because of attention to detail. Manchester, their energy and their athleticism is compelling at times, but their attention to detail and their offensive execution at the end of games is, they're more likely to score on the second shot than the first. It's just kind of difficult. Whereas, Caledonia got an open Patrick Whelan three, an open Trent Buttrick three out of their offense because the ball was moving.
Buttrick 17 points, 12 rebounds. Whelan 16 points. All of that basically in the last 11 minutes of the game. Moore 13 points and 8 rebounds. Lee 16 points, although off 16 shots. Anderson 14. Lewis 13 points off 17 shots. So we'll quickly run through the table. Lions 17-3, Cheshire 12-5, Caledonia 11-5, Bristol 10-9, Sheffield 9-8, Newcastle 9-9, Leicester 7-10, Surrey 6-12, Manchester 5-12, and Plymouth 2-15. Plymouth the only team not to have won away yet.
Looks like there's going to be a massive competition for those coveted 6th and 7th.
Seventh spot, yeah.
No one will finish 4th or 5th.
No, 4th and 5th is not.
4th and 5th is semi-final games in London. I'm sorry, this wasn't thought through, guys. You might want to reverse. You want to reverse your playoff seeding situation.
So I'm pretty sure next Sunday I'm on the doubleheader game.
Okay,
cool. So we'll probably have to do a Monday night for that one, because even with my excellent chauffeur allowing me to watch the game back, I don't think I'll be able to get back in time. So
he's got to have some skills, hasn't he?
He does, yeah. So on that bombshell, Dave and I will wrap it up for this week. Have a great week, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.